Well, good evening. My name is Martijn Andrea, and today I'll chair the Planning Committee. As Carol has sent her apologies, we'll come to that one later on. The Planning Committee consists of 9 elected borough councillors, supported by a range of professional officers. And it's the committee's responsibility to determine a planning application using current national and local planning policies and other relevant planning considerations. There is a formal set of procedures that we must adhere to. Today, Mark, the planning officer, will present the application. And once the presentation has been made, the committee will discuss and debate the application, seeking clarifications from the council's professional planning officers where necessary. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah. Any apologies?
Apologies from Councillor Carol Jewell. Chair.
Any declarations of interest for this particular application? We only have one application that we're going to be dealing with. Item 49, applications. No applications to be deferred or withdrawn?
No, Chair.
So then we can go straight into the application number 230099, the Aldi store at Winich. Oh, I'll leave 1 minute. Brian, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Just for members' benefit, I'd like to let you know that Liam will be leaving the council, and this is his last planning committee. So I thought I'd take the opportunity just before we begin to thank Liam. He's been Democratic Service Lead on Planning Committee for the last 18 months, yeah, wish him luck in his new role, Hammersmith and Fulham. So Liam will be departing us. Thank you, Chair.
And congratulations on, I think, on behalf of us all. We will miss you, Liam. It's been but anyway, well done. Okay, and then I'll pass on to Mark. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll give a brief presentation just to bring the committee up to speed and give a bit of chronology of where we are. First of all, just apologies for the amount of paperwork for what is a relatively simple item before the committee. So apologies if that's caused any confusion. So the application was first approved by the Planning Committee in December 2023 in accordance with the officer's recommendation and the council's drainage engineers. The committee recommendation was subject to conducting a Secretary of State consultation, giving the Secretary of State a chance to call in the application. This was a statutory requirement as the site was in flood zone 3 and the size of the development meant it was classed as a major development. The committee resolved to grant permission subject to the Secretary of State call-in, as I said. The Secretary of State did call in the application, and the determination of the application now falls with them. So the process for this is that an inquiry will be held, and this is after several deferments scheduled for May the 13th this year, so in a couple of weeks. And the planning inspector will then make a recommendation, much in the form of an appeal decision, and give this to the Secretary of State to consider. As the preparation for the inquiry began last year, the council's drainage officers reviewed their position on flooding and drainage, partly due to additional evidence submitted by the Environment Agency as part of the appeal, and recommended that an objection should actually be raised on flooding and drainage grounds. This was broadly because they didn't believe the flooding and drainage system was sufficient and that further information and modelling was required to demonstrate the drainage system was suitable. Committee members will then, I think everyone was here, or most of the members were here in June 2024, when we brought the item back to committee in light of that information and asked the committee to approve a course of action where the council actually objected on flooding and drainage grounds, and the committee did approve that course of action. So that kind of brings us to where we are now. So there have been extensive discussions between the council and the applicant, and the council has appointed an independent expert as well to look into this. In a nutshell, without sort of reiterating the addendum report, the council considers that an amended drainage system the amended drainage system would be appropriate, and that the additional information and modelling also demonstrates this. And I guess the crux of that is set out in paragraphs 7 and 9 in the 7 and 9 in the addendum. Officers therefore also consider that the development meets the exception and sequential test. And following from that, the proposal would also meet development plan policies, MDD local plan policy, CC09 and CC10. We are therefore asking the planning committee essentially to withdraw the flooding and drainage objection. Considering that is the only objection, the recommendation to the Secretary of State and the Inspector will be the application should therefore be approved. We're not seeking the committee to change their position on any other topic. The matter here is narrowly whether we can present a case to the Inspector and the Secretary of State that the drainage objection falls away and essentially revert back to the December 2023 resolution to grant permission. You'll see there's a supplementary agenda with a few updates. Most of those comments were previously aired in December or June, so there's not really much new information there, but we just felt it was right to put it there for completeness. And it should also be mentioned there's also an additional heads of term for the section 106, and that there will be a contribution for highway works in the form of traffic regulation orders along Gazelle Close. I have got some brief slides to go through. It will essentially just be refreshing members of the actual proposal, so I won't dwell on these too long. So this is the application site outlined in red, and you can just see Gazelle Close. So you've got Wicks and Holfords to the north of that, and Winnish Fields to the southeast. And this is just some areas just showing the site. This is the plan just showing the Aldi supermarket on the right and the car park on the left there. It's just some elevations of the supermarket. Here and here. Just some roof plans. It's just a CGI just showing how the supermarket would look, and you can see there it's raised above the ground levels. This is just to show where the site sits in the various flood zones. And again here. And this is just a revised drainage plan just for completeness. So if I just stop sharing that quick. So Chairman, yes, I'll pass it back to you. So just to reiterate, we're seeking the committee's permission to withdraw the flooding and drainage objection, which would therefore result in a recommendation for approval, which we will then present to the Inspector and the Secretary of State. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Do anybody have any questions? Wayne, go ahead.
I'm not going to go back over all the hours we spent on this previously, but Mark, why have the Secretary of State called this in?
They did present us a letter saying it was in very broad terms, and essentially it was the flood risk involved with it. To be perfectly honest, we were quite surprised it was called in, considering you would expect the applications they would have on their books. So we were quite surprised by that. But essentially it was the flood risk that they were concerned about.
I think you made a good point. So we actually not making the decision of this to go ahead. The only thing we need to sort of agree is that Wokingham Borough Council will not present substantive evidence on a drainage or flood risk matters at the inquiry. I think that's, am I paraphrasing you correctly there, Mark? That's the main, we're not deciding on, the decision will be with the Secretary of State. The only thing that we would like to decide today is that the Wokingham Borough Council will not present evidence against on drainage at the inquiry.
That's correct. If the committee agrees with this course of action, we do have a drainage expert who will provide some very brief information, really just reiterating what I've told the committee, but we don't want to, for the reasons I set out, go to the Secretary of State and the Inspector with an objection on flooding and drainage.
So in a nutshell, Martin, what we do is withdrawing our objection to the flooding plan, which has now been approved, and therefore we are quite happy. That's it. Yep.
Unless anybody else has any questions or comments. Then I'm looking for someone to put the proposal forward to go for, I see Wayne, thank you. In this case, that we support the officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Stuart, fantastic. Can we then go to a vote? Anybody supporting the proposal? Please raise your hands. That was approved. Thank you all. There is one more slight matter that I think Brian would like to inform us about.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the Planning Committee, I've got obviously some incredibly sad news to report to you as a committee. Sadly, Gordon Adam, our highways engineer, highways officer, passed away on the weekend. And obviously, I thought I'd make you aware as planning committee members here formally this evening. Obviously, Gordon was a much-loved member of our team at the council, and there's many within Alan's team in the transport team and the planning department who are in shock over Gordon's passing, and he will be sorely missed. He made a lot of kind of wonderful friends, professionally, personally, and I think it's worth noting for the record, he was a very helpful man, very kind man, and he supported a lot of our junior colleagues and senior colleagues over the years that he was with the council, and he will be sorely missed. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. I think I echo everybody's here to say that Gordon was a joy to work with. He was very knowledgeable and always helpful, also for us members of the planning committee. So, thank you. Our condolences on behalf to the team and also to his family.
I'd like to say how when you told me today, it's just in shock. Really, he was a character, and I agree with you, Brian. He's one of the few people in highways that does actually come back to you, not planning, but in highways that actually comes back to you and help you. So, and he was a lovely chap. Had some great fun at these committees. So, all the very best goes to his family, and just in this sad time.
Thanks, Wayne. Okay. Shall we close the meeting?